On June 12, 2023, climber James Collins was ascending the south wall of the Grand Canyon. The sun was beating down mercilessly. The rocks were red hot. In a crevice 60 meters above, something blue glinted between the stones. Collins stopped. In 20 years of climbing, he had seen everything. But not this. A blue piece of fabric was sticking out of a narrow crack. The climber cautiously pulled himself closer. It was a piece of a tourist backpack, with a tag, with a serial number. Collins took out his phone and dialed the rescue service. An hour later, rangers were descending to him. The backpack's serial number was entered into the database. The result silenced everyone. The backpack belonged to Madison Clark, the same Madison who had disappeared 7 years ago. On October 14, 2016, Madison woke up early in the hotel. The sun was just peeking over the edge of the canyon. She nudged Ethan's shoulder. He opened his eyes and smiled. Today was their last day in Arizona, a day Ethan had been planning for months. In his jeans pocket was a ring, platinum with a half-carat diamond. Ethan had bought it with his last savings. Madison had no idea. She was only thinking about the photos for her university project. At breakfast, they studied a map of the trails. Madison wanted to walk the Bright Angel Trail all the way to the bottom. Ethan objected. It was 8 hours one way. Too much for one day. They chose the Hermit Trail, shorter and more picturesque. At 9 in the morning, they loaded their backpacks into a rented Jeep. Water, snacks, a camera, a first aid kit. The standard tourist kit. Ethan checked the car's GPS tracker. Madison laughed at his caution. What could happen in a national park? At the entrance, they were met by Ranger Tom Castro, a man in his 50s with faded eyes and a tanned face. He handed them a safety memo. Standard procedure. Castro had seen thousands of couples like this. Young, in love, carefree. Stay on the marked trails, he said. The canyon doesn't forgive mistakes. Madison nodded and put the brochure in her pocket. Ethan wrote the emergency number in his phone. They didn't know that in 24 hours, dozens of people would be dialing that number. At 2:30 in the afternoon, the couple stood at the Hermit's Rest lookout. Madison photographed the layers of red rock. Each layer represented millions of years of history. Ethan filmed her on his phone. At 2:47 p.m., they took their last selfie. They were both smiling. Witnesses saw them at the start of the Hermit Trail at 3:30 p.m. An elderly couple from Texas remembered Madison because of her bright blue jacket. Ethan was carrying a large backpack and a tripod for his camera. They walked confidently, like experienced hikers. The trail wound its way downhill. The first 2 kilometers were a gentle descent. Then the steep sections began. Madison stopped every half hour to take pictures. The sun was setting in the west. The shadows in the canyon were getting longer. They had to be back at the car by 7 in the evening. At 8, they were going to have dinner at the hotel restaurant. Ethan had reserved a table by the window with a view of the canyon. That was where he planned to propose. The ring was in his backpack, wrapped in a velvet napkin. 8 o'clock in the evening. The restaurant. Manager Robert Wilson was waiting for the couple at the entrance. Table number 7 was empty. At 8:15 p.m., Wilson called Madison's room. No one answered. At 9 p.m., she asked the hotel manager for help. The manager, Michael Cheng, checked the parking lot. The Jeep was in the same spot. Chung looked through the windows. The backpacks were in the back seat. Documents, wallets, chargers, everything was there. Strange. Where could the tourists have gone without their belongings? At 10:30 p.m., Chung called park security. Ranger David Morgan, who was on duty, inspected the vehicle. His experienced eye immediately noticed details. The water bottles were full. The warm clothes were untouched. A trail map lay open on the seat. Morgan checked the car's GPS tracker through the rental system. The last movement was recorded at 3:20 p.m. at the Hermit Trail parking lot. The Jeep hadn't moved since then. The ranger felt uneasy. Something was wrong. On the morning of October 15th, the search operation began. Ranger Sarah Thompson was the first to arrive. She was a 38-year-old woman with 15 years of experience working in the park. Thompson had seen it all: lost hikers, accidents, bear attacks. But this case seemed special to her. By 10 in the morning, a team of 12 people had gathered. Rangers, volunteers, dog handlers with dogs. The helicopter unit was preparing for takeoff. Thompson divided the groups into sectors. They had to comb through 20 square kilometers. The dogs picked up the trail at the start of the trail. Rex, a German shepherd, pulled the guide down the route. The trail was fresh, but not very strong. The dry desert air quickly dissipated the scent. At Hermit Creek, the dogs lost the trail. The first group descended to Dripping Springs. Nothing suspicious. The second group searched the side trails. Nothing. A helicopter flew over the entire area. Pilot Jack Reeves had been working in the canyon for 20 years. He knew every crevice. But he couldn't find the couple. By evening, the search was expanded to neighboring trails. Perhaps the tourists had gotten lost and come out somewhere else. Bright Angel Trail, South Kaibab Trail, Grandview Trail. They searched everywhere for signs of Madison and Ethan. To no avail. Madison's parents flew in from Colorado the next day. Robert Clark, a history professor, and his wife Jennifer, a pediatrician. Calm, level-headed people. But now they were barely holding back their panic. Their only daughter was missing. Ethan's family arrived from New Mexico. Maria Rivera, a nurse, couldn't stop crying. Her son had always been careful. He planned every step. How could he disappear overnight? On the third day of the search, the first discovery was made. A tourist from California found a red baseball cap 4 kilometers from Hermit Trail, near Dripping Springs, next to a spring. Robert Clark identified the cap. It belonged to Ethan. The discovery of the cap changed the direction of the search. If Ethan had reached Dripping Springs, it meant that the couple had gone deeper into the canyon than expected. The teams moved to more remote areas, dangerous places where one wrong step could lead to a fall. Sarah Thompson coordinated the operation from base camp. The radio crackled with messages every half hour. Sector A7 clear. Team 3 moving to Monument Creek. Helicopter patrolling the western slope. All reports were the same. No signs of anyone. On the 5th day, a private investigator joined the search. Marcus Still, a former Denver police officer. Madison's parents hired him with their own money. Still studied all the case files. His experience told him something was wrong. Still interviewed all the witnesses again. An elderly couple from Texas mentioned a third person. A middle-aged man had been watching Madison and Ethan near the parking lot. He stood at a distance, smoking a cigarette. The Texans didn't think much of it. Anyone could be smoking in a parking lot. The description of the mysterious man was vague. He was of average height, of indeterminate age, and dressed in casual clothes. There were hundreds of people like that in the park every day, but Still latched onto one detail. The man hadn't taken his eyes off the couple. That seemed strange. The detective compiled a composite sketch based on witness descriptions. A nondescript face in a baseball cap. The image was sent to all park services. Several employees responded. A similar man had been seen at different times in different places, but no one knew his name. On October 7th, the search was officially called off. 22 days, hundreds of people, tens of thousands of dollars in expenses. The result? A baseball cap and an unidentified man in a parking lot. The police classified the case as missing persons. The families did not give up. Every weekend, groups of volunteers combed new areas of the canyon. They posted photos of Madison and Ethan on bulletin boards. They offered a reward for any information. $10,000, then 20, then 50. Winter brought snow to the high mountain areas of the canyon. The search became impossible. In the spring, the families resumed their expeditions. They hired professional climbers to survey hard-to-reach places. They checked every cave, every crevice. In the summer of 2017, a second discovery was made. A ranger was patrolling the bed of a dry creek 6 kilometers from Hermit Trail. Something was glinting among the rocks. It was a broken phone, an iPhone in a blue case, Madison's phone. Experts recovered some of the data from the damaged device. The last messages were dated October 14th. At 7:23 p.m., Madison began texting her friend in Denver. "Something's wrong. A man is following us with a..." The message was cut off mid-sentence. The unsent message confirmed Detective Still's suspicions. Someone was following the couple, possibly threatening them. The case went from missing persons to criminal investigation. The police reopened the investigation. Investigator James Patrick took the case under his personal control. A veteran with 20 years of experience, he specialized in serious crimes. Patrick reviewed surveillance camera footage from all entrances to the park. He checked car rental records. He interviewed hotel employees. One detail caught the investigators' attention. On the day the couple disappeared, several former employees were working in the park. They were guides who had been fired in recent years for misconduct. One of them came under suspicion. He was a middle-aged man who knew the canyon like the back of his hand. The search for the suspect took months. He left Arizona immediately after being fired. He went into hiding in neighboring states under a false identity. When he was found, the hardest part began. Proving guilt without the bodies of the victims is virtually impossible. The suspect denied everything. He had an alibi for the time of the couple's disappearance. Witnesses corroborated his story. Investigator Patrick understood that without new clues, the case would go cold. And there were no new clues. The years dragged on. 2018, 2019, 2020. Every anniversary of the family's disappearance, memorial events were organized. People came to the canyon with photos of Madison and Ethan. They lit candles. They prayed for a miracle. Detective Still retired in 2021. He handed over all the files to the police. Thousands of pages of statements, expert reports, and reports accumulated in the archives. The Clark River case became the most voluminous in the department's history. And the most hopeless. Sarah Thompson was promoted and became head of the park's search and rescue service. But the 7-year-old case continued to haunt her. Every 6 months, she organized small expeditions. She checked new theories. She looked for clues that might have been overlooked. On June 12, 2023, a call from climber Collins shook up the stagnant case. Thompson personally went to the site of the discovery. The blue fragment of the backpack lay in a crevice inaccessible to ordinary tourists. Who could have thrown it there? And why this particular place? Experts confirmed that the fabric had been lying in the crevice for several years. It had faded in the sun, but retained its structure. The backpack's serial number left no doubt. It belonged to Madison Clark. It was the first real clue in 7 years of searching. Thompson organized a new expedition to the site of the find. This time, professional mountain rescuers were brought in. The team descended into the crevice and searched every inch. What they found exceeded all expectations. Deep in the crevasse, in a small cave, lay the rest of their belongings. A second backpack, a jacket, boots, and most importantly, a waterproof container with an SD card from the camera. A memory card that could reveal the truth about the couple's last hours. Forensic experts processed the SD card in the laboratory. Most of the files were recovered. The photos showed Madison and Ethan's route along the trail. The last pictures were taken on the evening of October 14th. They showed the figure of a pursuer. A man in a camouflage jacket was following the couple at a distance. His face was not visible, but his build and gait allowed experts to create a more accurate portrait. Facial recognition software compared the image with a database. The results shocked everyone. The pursuer was a park employee, a former guide who had been fired for safety violations. The very same man who had been suspected 7 years ago. But back then, there wasn't enough evidence. Now there was. The police obtained an arrest warrant, but the suspect still had to be found. In 7 years, he had managed to hide far away from Arizona. He had changed his identity. He had disappeared among millions of Americans. The search took weeks. The trail led to a Navajo reservation in New Mexico. There, under a false name, a man suspiciously similar to the fugitive was working as a handyman. FBI agents watched him for a week. They collected DNA samples. They compared fingerprints. On June 26, 2023, he was arrested without resistance. In the cabin where he lived, they found items belonging to other tourists. Cameras, jewelry, documents. The man who had been hunted for 7 years turned out to be a serial criminal. But who was he? What were his motives? Why did he choose Madison and Ethan? What happened that October evening in the canyon? The answers to these questions will shock you more than you can imagine. This is only the beginning of the story. The most terrifying discoveries were yet to come. Part 2. Wayne Bishop sat in his holding cell and said nothing. 51 years old, graying hair, calloused hands. His eyes, the color of dirty water, stared at the wall. In 7 years on the run, he had not uttered a word of truth. Investigator James Patrick studied the suspect's file. Wayne Daniel Bishop, born in Flagstaff, Arizona. Worked as a guide in the Grand Canyon from 2008 to 2015. Fired for systematic safety violations. After his dismissal, his life fell apart. The first interrogation was scheduled for the morning of June 27th. Bishop appeared accompanied by a lawyer. The young court-appointed attorney was more nervous than his client. The criminal appeared confident, as if he had been rehearsing this meeting for years. "Where were you on October 14th, 2016? Patrick asked. "I don't remember," Bishop replied. "It's been too long." The investigator placed photos from the SD card on the table. A silhouette in a camouflage jacket following a couple. Bishop looked at the photos without emotion. His face did not flinch. "That's not me," he said calmly. Patrick took out the evidence. The jacket found in the cave. Bishop wore the same model when he was working as a guide. Witnesses confirmed this. Camouflage coloring, pockets for equipment, wear and tear in characteristic places. "There are thousands of jackets like that," the lawyer remarked. "But not with your fingerprints," Patrick objected. Forensic experts found partial prints on the jacket's zipper. The match with the database was 92%. Enough for a conviction, not enough for complete certainty. Bishop asked for time to think. He was taken to his cell. Patrick stayed behind to study the case files. In 30 years on the job, he had seen many criminals. But this one seemed different. Too calm for someone who was innocent. Detective Marcus Still had voluntarily returned from retirement. The case that had tormented him for 7 years was finally moving forward. He brought boxes of documents he had collected over years of private investigation. Notes, diagrams, photographs. Bishop isn't a random killer, Still said. He planned this for months. The detective's files contain the suspect's bank statements. After being fired, the man had fallen into debt. Credit cards, loans, overdue mortgage payments. By October 2016, his debt exceeded $100,000. Still found records of Bishop's phone calls with debt collectors. Threats, demands, ultimatums. His house could be taken away at any moment. He needed money, fast and a lot of it. He chose his victims in advance, the detective continued. He studied tourist routes. He looked for couples with expensive equipment. Search queries were found on Bishop's computer. Cost of professional cameras. Price of jewelry at pawn shops. How to sell stolen goods without documents. The browser history revealed the plans for the crime. Ranger Sarah Thompson questioned Bishop's former colleagues. The guides recalled his strange behavior during his last months on the job. He often disappeared during tours, leaving groups unattended. He wandered the canyon alone. He was studying secret trails, said guide Michael Church. Places where tourists don't go. He said he was looking for new routes. Thompson mapped these secret trails. They all led to remote areas of the canyon. Hard-to-reach places where no one would hear a cry for help. Perfect spots for an ambush. The second interrogation was tougher. Patrick presented new evidence. Phone records, bank documents, witness statements. The wall of evidence grew with every passing hour. You followed the couple in the morning, the investigator asserted. You waited until they went deep into the canyon. Prove it, Bishop replied. Forensic expert Robert Henderson presented an analysis of soil from the suspect's shoes. The soil samples matched the soil composition at Hermit Trail. Microscopic particles of red sandstone, characteristic of that area. That soil is all over the canyon, the lawyer objected. But not in that mineral combination, the expert countered. Geological analysis revealed a unique combination of iron compounds. Such a combination is found only within a kilometer of the couple's disappearance. Bishop had been there on October 14th. The victims' families followed the investigation through the media. Robert Clark traveled to Arizona to attend the trial in person. Maria Rivera couldn't handle the stress. She stayed home under medical supervision. We've been waiting 7 years for answers, Clark told reporters. We want to know the truth. The whole truth. FBI psychologist Jessica Morgan profiled the killer. Bishop was an organized killer. He planned his crimes in advance. He chose his victims based on specific criteria. He covered his tracks professionally. This was not a spontaneous killing, Morgan told investigators. He had been preparing for this day. Maps of the canyon with markings were found in Bishop's house. Red crosses marked the places where tourists had disappeared in recent years. Blue crosses marked areas with poor mobile reception. Green crosses marked trails without surveillance cameras. Investigators compared the markings with the missing persons database. The matches were frightening. 4 cases in 2 years. All in locations marked by Bishop on the maps. All remain unsolved. Patrick summoned the relatives of other victims for questioning. An elderly couple from Minnesota who disappeared in 2014. A young man from Texas who went missing in 2015. Their cases were closed as accidents. We may be dealing with a serial killer, Patrick told the prosecutor. Prosecutor David Lee studied the files of other cases. Similar handwriting, same geography, recurring details. All the victims were tourists with expensive equipment. All disappeared in remote areas of the canyon. The third interrogation lasted 8 hours. Bishop began to crack. He contradicted himself. He got confused in his testimony. His lawyer asked for breaks every half hour. "Tell me about October 14th, Patrick insisted. "I was at home," Bishop repeated. "At home all day." "But your neighbors didn't see you." "Neighbors don't see much." The investigator presented footage from traffic cameras. Bishop's pickup truck had passed the park entrance at 2:00 p.m. The license plate number was clearly visible. The time matched the couple's arrival at the parking lot. "That's not my car," the suspect said. "Then who was driving your car?" Bishop fell silent. He stared at the wall. He drummed his fingers on the table. His lawyer whispered something in his ear. The defense attorney knew the case was lost. Forensic experts reconstructed the pickup's route using city cameras. The car left Bishop's house at 1:20 p.m. It arrived at the canyon at 2:15 p.m. It left the park at 10:40 p.m. It returned home after midnight. 9 hours in the park, Patrick calculated. What were you doing there? Maybe he was admiring the scenery. In the dark? A ballistics expert examined the suspect's truck. Microscopic traces of blood were found in the bed. DNA analysis matched samples from the victim's relatives. The blood belonged to Ethan Rivera. This was a turning point. Irrefutable evidence linked Bishop to the crime. The lawyer requested a meeting with his client. An hour later, they returned to the investigator's office. "My client is ready to testify," the lawyer announced, "in exchange for a reduced charge." Patrick agreed to hear the offer. The prosecutor participated in the negotiations via video link. The deal could save years of court proceedings and provide answers to the victims' families. Second-degree murder instead of first-degree, the lawyer proposed. "My client will tell you everything." "The truth first, then the deal," replied the prosecutor. Bishop asked for a glass of water. He cleared his throat. He looked at the tape recorder. He knew that the next words would change his life forever, and the lives of the families who had been waiting for answers for 7 years. "I've been watching them since this morning," he began quietly, "waiting for the right moment." The testimony was recorded on video. A stenographer recorded every word. Patrick didn't interrupt, letting the criminal speak. After 7 years of silence, the truth came out slowly. "They were perfect victims," Bishop continued. "Young, inexperienced, with expensive equipment." "Did you plan the robbery?" "Yes, just the robbery." "What went wrong?" Bishop hesitated. He looked at his lawyer. The lawyer nodded. The time for confessions had come, but the most horrific details of the crime were yet to be revealed. "The guy tried to protect the girl," Bishop said. "He lunged at me with his fists." "And what did you do?" "I pushed him away. Too hard." The investigators sensed that the criminal was not telling the whole truth. He was hiding details. He was minimizing his guilt. The real events of that evening turned out to be worse than his confession. Forensic pathologist Ann Turner studied the crime scene photos. The position of the bodies, the nature of the injuries, the signs of a struggle. The picture did not match Bishop's testimony. The murder was more brutal. "He's lying," Turner told Patrick. "The injuries are not consistent with an accidental fall." The expert reconstructed the sequence of events based on physical evidence. Ethan was struck on the head with a blunt object. Madison tried to run away. She was caught 50 meters from the scene of the attack. It was a cold-blooded murder, the medical examiner concluded. Patrick presented the expert report to Bishop. He turned pale. He realized that his lie had been exposed. The truth was emerging from beneath layers of deception. The lawyer asked for another conference. "This is your last chance to tell the truth," warned the investigator. Bishop sat silently for half an hour. He struggled with himself. For 7 years, he had hidden the details of the crime even from himself. Now the court demanded the truth. "I hit the guy with a rock," he finally confessed. "I killed him instantly." "And the girl?" "She saw the body. She started screaming. I couldn't let her go." Madison Bishop recounted the details of the murder with difficulty. His voice trembled. His hands shook. Even years later, the memory of that evening still frightened him. "Where did you hide the bodies?" "In a cave. I knew a secluded place." "Why didn't you burn them? Why didn't you bury them?" "I was afraid they'd find them. The cave seemed safer." Bishop recounted the hours he spent in the canyon that night, how he dragged the bodies into the crevice, hid the evidence. He covered his tracks. He planned his escape. "I left Arizona in the morning," he concluded. "I never went back." The testimony lasted 4 hours. The tape recorder recorded every word of the confession. The victims' families got answers to the questions that had tormented them. But one mystery remained. "Why this couple?" Patrick asked. "It was random," Bishop replied. "They were just unlucky." The investigator didn't believe him. In his 20 years on the job, he knew that serial killers don't act randomly. They always have criteria for choosing their victims, specific preferences. Psychologist Morgan analyzed Bishop's testimony. She found inconsistencies, omissions, and outright lies. The criminal was hiding his true motives. He was afraid to admit them, even to himself. He chose couples of a certain type. Morgan told the investigation. Young, beautiful, happy. Meaning? He envied their happiness. He wanted to destroy it. Detective Still studied Bishop's personal life. The man had never been married. His relationships with women had never worked out. At 45, he was alone and embittered toward the world. Young couples reminded him of his own failures. Still suggested. This theory explained the choice of victims. Madison and Ethan were happy. They were planning their wedding. They had plans for the future. Everything that Bishop didn't have. The investigators returned to studying other cases. All the victims were couples. Young, in love, prosperous. Bishop was hunting for happiness. He killed what he couldn't have. The prosecutor prepared the indictment. First-degree murder, concealment of corpses, obstruction of justice. The punishment: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The victims' families prepared for the trial. Robert Clark wrote a speech to be read in court. Maria Rivera collected photos of her son to show the jury. They wanted the world to remember their children. But the main question remained unanswered. What caused Wayne Bishop to turn from a simple tour guide into a cold-blooded killer? What demons tormented his soul? The answer to these questions shocked everyone involved in the trial. Part 3. Psychiatrist Dr. Elizabeth Harris studied Wayne Bishop for 3 months. The sessions took place in a prison hospital under guard. The man spoke reluctantly. Every word had to be pulled out of him. "Tell me about your childhood," the doctor asked. "A normal childhood," Bishop replied. But medical records told a different story. An alcoholic mother, a tyrannical father, running away from home. At the age of 12, the boy was taken to an orphanage. That's where the aggression problems began. Harris found records from the school psychologist. As a teenager, Bishop tortured animals. He set fire to sheds. He beat up younger children. Classic signs of a future serial killer. "Were you jealous of happy couples?" the doctor asked. "I don't know what envy is." Bishop lied. A diary was found in his cell. The pages were full of hatred for tourists, especially couples. They look at each other like idiots. They think love is eternal. I'll show them reality. Dr. Harris compiled a detailed profile of the criminal. Antisocial personality disorder, sadistic tendencies, complete lack of empathy, maximum danger to society. He is incurable, she told the court. He will kill again at the first opportunity. The trial began on January 15th, 2024. Judge Ellen Morrison conducted the proceedings strictly according to the rules. 30 years on the bench had taught her to distinguish truth from lies. The courtroom was packed. Journalists filled all the press seats. The victim's relatives sat in the front row. Robert Clark held a photo of his daughter in his hands. Maria Rivera cried quietly. Prosecutor David Lee opened the trial with a powerful speech. 17 years of practice had taught him how to influence jurors. Every word was carefully chosen in advance. Wayne Bishop is not just a murderer, Lee began. He is a hunter of human happiness. Defense attorney James Collins tried to mitigate his client's guilt. He referred to a difficult childhood, mental illness, and alcohol addiction. The standard set of excuses. My client is sick, he argued. He needs treatment, not punishment. The first witness was Ranger Sarah Thompson. She talked about the 7-year search, about the hundreds of hours spent in the canyon, about her belief that the truth would be found. I knew they were out there, Thompson said. I couldn't leave their families without answers. Detective Marcus Stills showed the jury the investigation files. Boxes of documents, diagrams, photographs. 7 years of painstaking work fit into a few folders. This case changed my life, he admitted. I couldn't think about anything else. Criminalist Robert Henderson explained the significance of the evidence found to the jury. DNA, fingerprints, soil samples. Every detail was a piece of the puzzle. The probability of error is less than 1 in a billion, the expert concluded. Mountaineer James Collins talked about the discovery in the crevice. That blue piece of fabric changed everything. It gave hope to families. It brought the case back to life. I've been rock climbing for 20 years, he said. But I've never seen anything like this. Computer expert Michael Chen recovered the files from the SD card. The photos told the story better than any witnesses. The last minutes of the couple's lives were captured on camera. Technology doesn't lie, Chen explained. The camera recorded the truth. Forensic pathologist Ann Turner described the nature of the victim's injuries. Blows with a blunt object, signs of a struggle, attempts to escape. The picture was horrific. Death was not instantaneous, she said. They suffered. Silence fell over the courtroom. The jurors looked at each other. Relatives clenched their fists. Reporters scribbled notes. Psychiatrist Elizabeth Harris explained the killer's motives. Childhood trauma had turned into hatred for all living things, especially for displays of love and happiness. He killed what he couldn't have, the doctor concluded. On the 4th day of the trial, Bishop himself took the stand. His lawyer tried to dissuade him from speaking, but the defendant insisted. He wanted to speak for himself. I didn't plan to kill them, he began in a trembling voice. But you did, interrupted the prosecutor. It's their own fault. They shouldn't have resisted. A murmur of indignation rose in the courtroom. The judge called for order. Bishop continued to justify himself. I just wanted money, he lied. Nothing personal. The prosecutor read excerpts from the suspect's diary. The entries were full of hatred for happy couples, plans for revenge, a thirst for destruction. I'll kill all those lucky bastards, Lee quoted. Did you write that? Bishop was silent. He realized he had said too much. The lawyer asked for a recess to consult with his client. On the 5th day, the victims' families took the stand. Robert Clark slowly made his way to the podium. His hair was gray, his eyes tired, his shoulders hunched. 7 years of waiting had aged him 20 years. Madison dreamed of becoming a photojournalist, he began quietly. She wanted to show the world the beauty of nature. His voice trembled. Tears streamed down his cheeks. The courtroom listened in absolute silence. She was going to get married. She was planning to have children. She had a future. Clark looked at Bishop, straight into his eyes. The killer lowered his head. You stole our daughter. You stole the grandchildren we will never see. Maria Rivera spoke in Spanish. An interpreter translated her words to the jury. A mother's pain sounds the same in any language. Ethan was a good boy, she sobbed. He never hurt anyone. He helped everyone. The woman talked about her son's plans. Marriage, a career, a family, all destroyed by one man, one moment of madness. For 7 years, I didn't know where my son was, Maria continued. I searched for him in my dreams every night. She showed the ring Ethan had bought to propose. It was platinum with a diamond. It was found among his personal belongings in the cave. He loved Madison so much, his mother whispered. He wanted to make her happy. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. The jury wiped away tears. The judge struggled to maintain her composure. The defense tried to elicit sympathy for the defendant. They talked about his difficult childhood, mental illness, and alcoholism. They called witnesses who were prepared to give him positive references. Wayne is not a monster, said social worker Nancy Brown. He's just a broken man. But the testimony sounded unconvincing. Too many facts spoke against the defendant. The prosecutor was relentless in his closing argument. He picked apart every argument made by the defense. He showed the flaws in their excuses. A difficult childhood does not give you the right to kill, Lee said. Millions of people grow up in dysfunctional families. They don't become murderers. He reminded the jury of Bishop's other victims. 4 cases in 2 years, possibly more. A serial killer should receive the maximum punishment. This man is a threat to society, the prosecutor concluded. He has killed and will kill again. The defense attorney asked for leniency. He referred to the defendant's confession, cooperation with the investigation, and remorse. There is no death penalty in Arizona, he said, but there is a possibility of rehabilitation. The jury deliberated for 3 days. They discussed every piece of evidence, every testimony. The verdict had to be unanimous. On March 20, 2024, the decision was announced. The foreman of the jury stood up and read the verdict in a trembling voice. Guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted in applause. The victims' families hugged and cried. Reporters rushed to relay the news to their editors. Judge Morrison announced the sentence an hour later. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The maximum punishment under state law. Your crimes have shocked the entire country, she said to Bishop. You took the lives of 2 beautiful young people. Bishop was led away in handcuffs. He did not look back. He did not ask for forgiveness. He disappeared through the courtroom door forever. After the trial, the families gave interviews to reporters. Robert Clark thanked everyone who helped find the truth. Maria Rivera promised to keep her son's memory alive. Justice has prevailed, Clark said. It's late, but it has prevailed. Ranger Sarah Thompson received an award from the National Park Administration, a medal for outstanding service, but the greatest reward was the gratitude of the families. I was just doing my job, she said modestly. Detective Marcus Still returned to retirement with a sense of accomplishment. The case that had tormented him for 7 years was closed. "Now I can sleep peacefully," he confessed to his wife. Climber James Collins continued his ascents in the Grand Canyon, but he never returned to that place. Too many memories. "Some discoveries are better left in the past," he told his friends. In the spring of 2024, a memorial plaque was installed at the entrance to the Hermit Trail. It was a simple granite stone with photos of Madison and Ethan. In memory of Madison Clark and Ethan Rivera. Their love for nature and for each other will remain in our hearts forever. Every day, hundreds of tourists pass by the memorial. They read the names. They think about the fragility of life. The park administration has tightened security measures. It has increased the number of patrols. It has installed additional surveillance cameras. "We will do everything to prevent this from happening again," promised the new director. Wayne Bishop is serving his sentence in a maximum security prison. He is in solitary confinement. He only communicates with guards and psychologists. Once a month, a priest visits him. He talks about repentance and forgiveness. Bishop listens in silence. His soul remains closed. "Some people cannot be saved," Father Michael admits sadly. The story of Madison and Ethan has become a symbol of the fight for justice. Books have been written about it. A documentary film has been made. Thousands of people remember their names. Their parents have set up a charitable fund to help families of missing persons. Every year, search expeditions are organized in hard-to-reach places. Maybe we can help other families find answers, Robert Clark hopes. The Grand Canyon remains the same. Majestic, beautiful, dangerous. It has kept its secrets for millions of years. Now one secret is gone. Tourists still come to admire the natural wonder. They take pictures at the observation decks. They descend the trails in search of adventure. But now they know that beauty can be deceptive. Danger can lurk around every turn. You have to be careful. It took 7 years to solve this case. 7 years of pain, hope, and perseverance. But the truth always wins, even if it comes late. Madison dreamed of becoming a photojournalist. She wanted to show the world the beauty of nature. In a sense, her dream came true. Their love story touched millions of hearts. Ethan wanted to propose to his girlfriend. The ring remained in its box. But their love became a symbol that even death cannot destroy true feelings. Justice sometimes comes when we least expect it. But it always comes. Thanks to people who don't give up, who don't forget, who keep searching for the truth. Sarah Thompson still works in the Grand Canyon. Every morning she passes by the memorial to Madison and Ethan. She says good morning to them, like old friends. "They changed my life," she admits. "They taught me never to give up." There are many trails in the canyon. Some lead to beautiful views, others lead nowhere. The Trail of Justice is the longest, but it always leads to its destination. The Clark River case is closed. The killer has been punished. The families have received answers. But the memory of the young couple will live on forever. Thousands of pages of documents lie in the police department's archives. Testimony, expert reports, photographs. The story of a 7-year search for the truth. Maybe someday someone will write a book about this case. It will tell the story of the people who never gave up. It will show that justice always triumphs over evil. For now, all that remains is memory, and faith that good is stronger than evil, that love conquers death, that the truth will always find its way to the light. What does justice mean to you when it comes after 7 years of waiting? Are you able to forgive someone who took away what was most precious to you? Share your thoughts in the comments.